Okay, so it's 10:45 in the evening, and I rambled this off to myself, and I wanted to put it out there for you guys to talk about. This is my thoughts on who has the best character arc in the entire MCU. Is it Steve Rogers, Captain America, or is it Tony Stark, Iron Man? Now I want you guys to know I don't have a bias whatsoever, and I will let you guys know right now, I do feel like it is Tony Stark, Iron Man. If you don't believe that, please hear me out, because I know there's a lot of stands out there for Captain America. Let you guys know right now, I was Team Cap. Captain America is one of my favorite characters of all time, especially this version of the MCU, and Tony Stark is fantastic as well, and like I said, I really supported the Team Cap movement in Civil War, but I will say, Tony Stark has the best. He has the best character arc, and I'm going to tell you why. When you look at it beat for beat, the character arcs and the depth of those character arcs, it's very expansive. Now, with Captain America, he was a guy who wanted to do what was right all his life. He just wanted to commit himself to protecting his country and serving it, and probably laying down his life for it. And he did that in the first Captain America film, and then after being frozen through time and being in our present time, he's been lost. He's been lost the whole time, and ultimately had to face the conflict of facing his country and going against it, which ultimately led him to a fugitive, but he will always be around to protect the world because it's what's right, and he will always do what's right. That is a great character arc, it very much is, especially expanding through the MCU. But I will not deny Tony Stark has a better one. When you look at where he comes from, how he starts as an arrogant, narcissistic billionaire, also a genius as well, who gets kidnapped by terrorists, nearly dies, and sees that the weapons he manufactured are being used by terrorists. He takes a stand to break out, become a better person. Heck, his breakout from the cave is ultimately signifying him leaving his past self in that cave and ultimately becoming the man that we admire today. He gets home, he ultimately shuts down his weapons, and he builds a weapon of his own, a suit that he uses to protect the people that he put in harm's way. And then by Iron Man 2, the government wants his suit, and it's very much shown that whether it's Whiplash or the government trying to make their own versions of Iron Man, they can't do it, they don't know what they're doing, they cannot properly use it. At best, you got Rhodey, who ultimately sides with Tony by the end. It's safer in Tony's hands. He's the only one who can use it, and he does use it to protect the world. It's even said in the opening Iron Man 2 at the congressional meeting that he has been protecting the world ever since he came out as Iron Man over the last couple years. Fantastic. Then by Avengers, there's a real-world threat of an alien invasion, and he does protect the world, and after doing so, it messes up his mind, and he's left with post-traumatic stress disorder that he has to face in Iron Man 3. And it's such a toll on him, and he still faces it, and he ultimately realizes what he needs to do. His next step in his goal is to protect the world, and he just wants to live at peace. He wants to live with Pepper, settle down with her, and that's made apparent in Age of Ultron, where his ultimate goal is to have the world protected, and he doesn't have to be the one to do it anymore. Nobody does. We can end the fight and go home, is what he says in Age of Ultron, and in doing so, he doesn't do it correctly and ultimately leads to Ultron. And that is another mess up that ultimately leads to the Civil War, where Tony believes, okay, things I'm doing, they're not panning out very correctly. There's a lot of people who are getting in harm's way because of my actions as well. I need to be put in check. We need to be put in check. By we, I mean I, but I'm forcing it out on you guys. Let's side with the government. Cap? Yeah? No? Please? I will fight you for this. Guess I'm fighting you. And that ultimately leads to the Civil War. And also, great little spin-off character arc that gets developed later. Tony recruits Peter Parker, Spider-Man, somebody he ultimately sees himself in. How so? Well, it's an ambitious, genius kid who granted doesn't have the money Tony had, but he He's smart, he's very well versed in technology, and he wants to protect people. He uses his powers to protect people just like Tony. And he does it through his intellect as well as his powers. Very well done. That ultimately creates him to he recruits Peter under his wing and ultimately helps him out and takes him, takes him under his wing and ultimately becomes a father figure to Peter. And he even admits his faults, that he was wrong about him, and he's ready to give him a brand new suit and welcome him as a member of the Avengers. And he's even more impressed by his protege when he turns him down. And then he goes and proposes to Pepper on stage in front of millions of people, and here we are in Infinity War, where Thanos is coming, and this is the big thing. Tony is probably the person who most deserves to take on Thanos from Earth. I'm not going to say in the whole universe, because Gamora and Nebula have very strong motives to take on Thanos, very more personally, but of all the people from Earth, Tony deserves a shot at taking down Thanos, because over the last 6 years, his mind has been messed up from New York that Thanos caused. That alone drives Tony to protect. This is the ultimate protection of the world for him. He will take on the person who has ultimately been ruining his life, led to the events of Ultron and Civil War that causes friends to break apart. It was all Thanos, and Tony knows that, and he needs to take him down, and he tries to, and we're still going to Avengers 4 to resolve that. And as far as that goes, and I know I did just break down all the Iron Man films, and you may think, well, if you break down all the Captain America films, Steve has a better arc if you look at it from this perspective. Okay, look at this. First Avenger. Steve wants to be a good man and protect his country, and he does that. He gets frozen in time, comes to our world, not our world, our time in this world, and in the Avengers, what is he? He's the guy who's trying to do what's right. He's at odds, but ultimately works with Tony, and they all are happy, and they go on their separate ways in their lives until they're needed again. Steve doesn't change too much from First Avenger to Winter Soldier. Then when you do get to Winter Soldier, it is focusing on a little bit of struggle going against the system that he works for, which ultimately turned out to be Hydra, and Steve is a bit of a fugitive in that film, which will come even more later in his life, that he has to be on the run from the country he wants to protect. But Dolphin clears his name by the end of that, and all is well. Then we hit Age of Ultron, and once again, like in the first Avengers film, Steve is pretty much the same good guy. However, he is struggling with the fact that he doesn't belong in this world. He would be so much more happier in his old time, but he can't go back, and he has to live with that. That is a great arc. And furthermore, when you hit Civil War, that he has to go against the country he swore to protect because it's what's right, that is also fantastic. I'm not denying that. And that ultimately leads him to become a fugitive, hiding out in Wakanda, and all over the world pretty much on the run with Black Widow and Falcon. It's very well done, and by Infinity War, once again, he's fighting the good fight to protect the world because that's who he is. It's a great arc from where he started to where he is now, but he ultimately does stay the same. Even if he's a bit more grittier, he's still the same old Steve. Tony goes through so many different things, and by Avengers 4, how are both of their arcs going to end? I know this is kind of a random thing to just pop in, but let me just say, I think they're both going to die. As sad as it's going to be, because we've all been debating, okay, either Steve's going to die, Tony's going to die. Some people are like, maybe both, but they'd also say, nah, too crazy, let them walk off into the sunset. I feel like they're both going to die, and I feel like they're both going to be meaningful to their full arcs. Captain America's arc, he is staying who he is, and it's great. What I believe will happen in Avengers 4 is I believe Steve will lay down his life and sacrifice himself like he did so many other times. Like when he threw himself on that grenade in the first Avenger, here he's going to sacrifice himself, lay down his life, so that the remaining teammates, including Tony, will be able to get away with whatever they need to be able to make the final confrontation to save the universe. This is the ultimate sacrifice Steve can make. He can lay down his life to protect the entire universe. And he does, and he has ultimately fulfilled his mission more so than he ever could have thought of. And that's very sad and emotional, but it's also very fulfilling for a conclusion of his arc. Tony, I believe, will go out in the same fashion, except he will lay down his life and sacrifice it to finalize that the whole universe is saved. His sacrifice will lead to the saving of the entire universe in that moment. They will succeed by Tony's sacrifice. And ultimately, the biggest thing they've set up, this giant story arc they've been setting up since Avengers, even before that, comes to a close with the person who kicked it off in 2008 with Iron Man, comes to a close with that same character in Avengers 4. And I think that will create so many more tears and will probably be more sad than the Infinity War ending. Spoilers to let you know for Infinity War. When so many people died, it's sad, but considering a lot of them are new people, you know they're gonna come back. I mean, Spider-Man had the most heartbreaking death in Infinity War. That is true. However, we do know he will be back because Tom Holland is filming Spider-Man Far From Home right now. Tony and Steve, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans' contracts are up. They're done. Unless they were to sign on again, which isn't too likely, this would be their big conclusion. And it makes sense. And the fact that their deaths would be more concrete than people who we know are going to be returning in future movies, whereas the characters that won't be returning, such as potentially Loki, whom we do believe is, and confirmed by the Russo brothers, is dead this time, you'll feel like that. It's done, it's over, and with Tony appearing in 10 MCU films by Avengers 4, that's very powerful for him to start the universe, and the big storyline they've had threaded throughout this entire universe. Over 20 films, 22 by Avengers 4, coming to a close with that character, I think is the perfect conclusion to his arc, and perfect conclusion to Captain America's arc. That's how I feel with their arcs. It's just a little ramble I had in my head that while Tony has the best arc, Cap has a great arc too, and both of their arcs are going to conclude pretty similarly but fulfilling to their arcs. That's what I have to say. I'll leave it off with you guys. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed whatever this was and maybe want to see another one, random thought that I have off the top of my head that I often talk to myself about, let me know and like the video and subscribe if you're not already. And that being said, I hope you have a great day. May the Force be with you always.